Well, there you have it. Sometimes your player preference shows through, and Akamaru Red, a true soldier and advocate of Forestcraft, unlike another particular commentator that has been booted out.
Hey, we all love Forest. Now that I is gone, we can all espouse our love for Forest. It's a great day.
All right, so talk to me about this match, Dasvi versus Bestmarmotte. Akamaru Red, give me your predictions, and please help us kick off this particular game.
Absolutely. So we see Forest against Dragon, Prime Dragon, Keeper Dragon, and I am of the community side that actually thinks Forest is favored in this matchup because Prime Dragon Keeper plays to the board, but you can actually play from your hand with OTK Forest, and you can OTK them from 20 damage if you have enough time.
Yep. Not just if you have enough time, but if you use your resources properly, right? Like we've seen Prime Dragon Keepers not being dealt with even with Dance of Deaths in hand in previous matchups, things like that. So realistically, it's just about making sure you keep Prime Dragon Keeper off the table as long as you can, and then building up your resources to actually OTK with.
Exactly, and we see an answer being used this early on the game. It kind of concerns me as a Forest player because we see Fortis and we see a lot of non-interactive followers. So I think you want to keep your answers, but on the other hand, he already has access to Dance of Death, which is, as you mentioned, a really strong card in this matchup.
Yep, and Cassiopeia, while being one of the best new cards out of the set for Forest, doesn't do a whole lot of work against Prime Dragon Keeper because generally they don't play it naked onto an empty board. They play it with a lot of backup, so that 5 toughness turning into 7 toughness sometimes is just too much for Cassiopeia to actually basically take down.
Absolutely. Prime Dragon Keeper, the strength of it is that even though she cannot be attacked, and she has a lot of health, so removal spells have trouble dealing with it. But we talked a lot about Forest because we are Forest mains. But
of course.
What do you feel about the dragon? What do you want to see as a dragon on the dragon side? Exo, sorry.
No problem. So are you talking about for this game or just in general?
Yeah, this matchup in general.
This matchup. So what I'm looking for, honestly, is early ramp as always. And then I honestly, in this matchup, want to see Fortes as soon as possible. Because I know that Forest only has a few answers to that, especially if they play a card like Airbound Barrage early in the game. I know they probably don't have access to too many more of them. I literally just want to storm them as fast as I can because I know that Roach can build up to those combo turns, right? Like, I play Roach plenty. I know that they can build up to a combo turn. I'm trying to kill them. I'm not trying to play this long, extended game where I try to outvalue them, because generally speaking, you're not going to do that.
Exactly. You want to be able to pressure the Forest player. You want to be able to kill them before the turn 7 or turn 8, where they have access to a lot of mana and a lot of options. And we see double Bahamut, which is not necessarily what you want to see. Zeus is a much more stronger card in this matchup, because when you play the Bahamut, you allow the Forest player to completely be free to do his entire combo on you.
Yeah, do whatever you want. Another aspect of the Forte is if you are playing Forte, and even if they do have an Airbound Barrage or a Dance of Death to remove it, you're literally dictating the pace of the game. You're saying, hey, Forest, you have to answer me. Hey, Forest, you have to answer me. Whereas Prime Dragon Keeper, in a real sense, you can kind of ignore his Forest for a long period of time. Maybe like a turn or two, which is really all you need to kind of finish out the game. So I would have to agree with you. I think Forest does have the edge as long as it's played optimally.
We got an interesting matchup here because we were talking about specific cards in this matchup, and both players actually got them. We see the activation on Prime Dragon Keeper really fast because he actually hit the ramp cards and is going to be able to put a lot of pressure because he also got the Forte.
Yeah, this is a huge turn. Double Prime Dragon Keeper, on the other hand, beyond just having one, is huge against Forest because realistically, there's not a turn, especially this early with 6 play points, that you can deal with both. It's kind of impossible. So you really just kind of have to play around and just hope that they don't have the lethal coming at you. What would you do in this situation? So you're Dasvi, you don't know what's in the hand of Bestmarmotte. What is your play here?
So on this situation, I start thinking about my lethal on this turn and my next turns, and I'm starting to add the math of Dance of Death, because I know at this point that Forte is probably not enough to kill me, so that's what he goes for. So I start calculating the 2 damage, and if I'm able to kill him on the next turn, and what kind of tools do I need to perhaps stop deck or even use to get the lethal, and he goes for that.
Perfect. So yeah, as we know, with 2 0 costs and 7 play points, and he only has 1 roach. If he had 2 roaches, he could deal a possible 15 damage, not 17. Unfortunately, you would need. Oh, actually, no. 2 spells is 17. 3 spells would be more. So he could deal 17, which is still not lethal. So he doesn't have that set up yet. And that Forte, like we talked about, especially backed up by another Forte, might just close his game out too fast.
Yeah, we saw this game was very strong on the Dragon side. He had access to the ramp, and then he got double Forte, double Prime Keeper into double Forte is probably one of the strongest hands you can have in this matchup.
Yep. And I think this is just going to close it out like that. First of all, the Prime Dragon Keeper can't be dealt with, and like we already said, the second Forte already in hand. It's kind of lead Marmotte into an easy victory here.
Exactly. So he's doing the math. He's trying to see if there's any possibility of dealing 18 damage, which is unfortunately isn't, especially because he doesn't even have access to double roach. So
right.
At this point, I think he's realizing that he has no chance, and we're probably gonna see a Bestmarmotte playing really well, playing to his outs, keeping the prime dragon keepers, just going for the ramp, and then just slowly being aggressive and forcing, like you mentioned, the forest player to react to Dasvi.
Yep, absolutely. So, in your opinion, they always show it. You gotta show it. That's just the rule, man. Being a Prime Dragon Keeper player, have you made any techs? I know that you talked about it last time that we had a conversation, but have you made any new tech choices for the deck? Like, have you added in the card that can deal with the mirror? Like, have you made any changes significantly to it or anything like that?
No, the only change I've done was at this point was Zeus into the Bahamut, but I actually lost to Rahab, and I know you were talking about it before, and it does make sense. Having access to cheap ward followers can stop the Fortes, can stop the Genesis Dragons, can even stop the Roach lethal, so it's a very interesting card to add in the match.
It's a nice setup. Like, it obviously doesn't activate your Prime Dragon Keeper, but like, if you have Prime Dragon Keeper in play, and the only real way you have to lose is your opponent popping down Forte or Genesis Dragon specifically, or even Zeus for the most part, you just pop down a Rahab after you fill the board, and then your opponent just has to stop what they're doing, or they just have to waste their entire turn running into it. So I think it just gives you that nice little stopgap, especially in the mirror, and even against Roach combo, like if you just have a ward that you can plop out there, you know what I mean? I think wards are super effective in this metagame, and I don't think enough people are playing them.
Absolutely. There's also the high roll chance of getting Dragon Oracle being on the play. Dragon Oracle into Rahab.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Amazing.
He's so effective against most aggressive decks. It's one of the best starts you can have. And also Rahab just gets better the longer it goes, because as we mentioned, it blocks the important turns from most matchups, and he also grows in size even if you don't spend all the play points.
So one thing we noticed from Bestmarmotte, and what I really like about his direction of the Shadow deck, is not only is he playing Ceres from the new set, but he's also playing the new 5-drop, the 3/5 ward, which we just talked about. Wards being very good right now. That has the extra ability of Necromancy 2, deal 2 damage to a random enemy follower. What do you think about that card? Have you had any playtesting against it? Do you like it?
I did. I like it, and I added it to my mid shadow deck as well. It's not only a meta call, but it works against every single matchup. You're never sad about playing a 5 play point, such an effective stat at minimum with ward. You just have access to a lot of health, it protects you a lot. Like we mentioned, Shadow didn't have a lot of healing coming to this expansion, and now we have a natural curve that it's kind of healing. One heals us and the other one protects us, and we saw it being really effective this tournament. He won a game off of that previously because he stopped
purely,
and then he was able to set up.
Yeah, absolutely. So we see Bestmarmotte having a nice little aggro draw here, but he doesn't really have anything to fall back on. So he's going to have a good soul conversion here, or just top deck some good cards in a row here. Like Prince Catacomb would be an amazing draw here.
Absolutely. Ceres is also interesting, but like you mentioned, we don't have a lot of resources. I think I would keep the Ceres just because it would give me the option to evolve the next turn, or keep the Soul Squasher. I also want to get the shadows for the Soul Squasher.
This doesn't even stop an EPM play. Like, EPM could easily run into that Ceres and you would have gotten no value out of it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So very interesting just to play the Ceres.
I really like to evolve Ceres against Forest. It's such a hard follower for me to do it. So.
That's like, you must Dance of Death this, or I will keep clearing your board every single turn with it.
And as you mentioned, in case he evolved the Elf Princess Mage, we didn't even have a Soul Squasher activated, so we would need to Soul Convert, and we could just do that the previous turn, right? We'd see more options as well.
Exactly. So I think he's going to have to do it here. Like, attack, Soul Convert, see what you draw. Yep.
Also, another good point is that against Forest, you want to make your weak turns as early in the game as possible and not make it on turn 5. So we would have a turn 4 weak turn, but we would come back on turn 5 and get a little bit stronger turn 5.
Right, and it's huge because of cards like Fina. Now Fina can kind of just come out and do its job. Of course, Soul Squasher can come out and finish it off, but that uses up your shadows, and again, you're just limited on resources. So I think, actually, Dasvi is pretty well set up this game. We don't see any Ektars or anything crazy out of Bestmarmotte at the moment.
Yeah, you will have a lot of time this game, and but Shadow is also always explosive, right? As soon as you get one of the strong cards, either Thane, even Blade Fiend, or Ektar, it's just really strong. You get in a really strong position to win the game.
So I agree with Dasvi here, going for the Fina this turn instead of the Will of the Forest, because he doesn't feel threatened. He knows that there's not a lot of cards in Bestmarmotte's hand, and he needs to go for lethal soon because he is running out of life points.
Exactly, and he's coming to the scary turns of Death's Breath, and speaking of Death's Breath, look at that.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say about it is he's going to the scary turns of Shadow, which is always turn 6, turn 7, and he doesn't have a lot of ways to interact with it outside of Will of the Forest. So, like you mentioned, you need to speed up the combo and try to lethal before turn 7 or 8.
Yep. And this Saris play backed up by a Death Breath next turn is unreasonably good against Forest. You have to deal with the Saris, and then Death Breath comes down to be basically the best card against Forest, and it always has been, unfortunately. Yeah, just so much value out of that card.
This is also very smart. Going wide on this turn forces, for instance, the Cassiopeia or the Will of the Forest, and you have Death's Breath to back it up. So I really like the position from Bestmarmotte on this turn.
Yep, just like we were talking about. If you force Forest, that's one of the best ways to play against it. If you force Forest to be reactionary to you, you really get a lot of mileage against the deck. So just be aware of that, folks.
Absolutely. Forest wants to keep the evil points for the Finas and for the Elf Princess mages, and in these situations, if you force them to evolve fairies, it's a position that they don't want to be on. And unfortunately, Dasvi doesn't have a very good hand because you want to draw into the roaches with your goblin mages or the Finas, and he has access to all the roaches, but we don't have access to 0-cost cards to even start pushing damage.
And Bestmarmotte knows that. So another thing to be keenly aware of, if you don't see any EPMs or Finas or anything like that that are putting 0-cost cards into the Forest player's hands, you know that it's just going to slow them down. So Bestmarmotte, knowing that very well, basically making as wide a board as he can to kind of play around Cassiopeia as best as possible, or Will of the Forest, which it does leave a follower in play, and he has the shadows again for Death Breath. So very well played by Bestmarmotte. I like what I'm seeing from him.
It was very well navigated. He realized he didn't need the wards the previous turn, so he chose to go wide and bait the Cassiopeia or the Will of the Forest, and now it's most likely a lockup on this game unless we see some other sort of AoE removal, which we don't see.
Nope, we're gonna have to see at least 2 roaches here just come down to essentially let Dasvi survive. And that can't feel good, because then you have to combo from 18 with a single roach left.
And he might even dig for more answers, yeah, because he needs, even if he clears with the roaches, he needs some other sort of gas. But if he's going to use roaches to clear the board, and Shadow has 18 HP, it's very hard to win this game, and he realizes that. So,
yep. So very well played by Bestmarmotte, not slowing down at all.
There it is.
Game.
Bestmarmotte takes the tournament win. Yeah. You know, Senpai was right all along. He was right all along.
Yep, he was. He was.
Yeah. I can't. So, Akamaru, being a competitor, are you familiar with either of these players? Are you familiar with Bestmarmotte or